Okay, so let's begin. It's been a while, so I forgot most of the stuff. I mean, I actually reviewed a lot in Israel, and I realized that some of the things that we did before, I probably could have done differently. But in any case, so the last piece that we were seeing in Kuf Mem was he was going through the Rambam's concept of giving birth. Right? And he was saying that you could borrow the term giving birth to other things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he said, so concepts, so concepts give birth. And if concepts give birth, why do you specifically give the concept of give birth? Because the birth is different from other multiplication is that it comes from within. Right? Mm-hmm. So if one concept gives birth to another concept, that means that the seeds of that concept must have been present in the previous concept, and so that gives you better tools for analysis, because if you drill into one concept, then you can see how the previous concept, you can then deduce, or you can reverse engineer some other things as well. Right? That's what the takeaway was. Okay, what's interesting about it just happens to be that now when I was in Israel, I picked up a copy of Moreh Nevuchim, and it's where he talks about parables of Chazal, not his own parable, but parables of Chazal, and he says specifically that some parables, there's a lesson, and don't go out and trying to apply all other aspects of the parable to this lesson, So Ramchal is saying that once the parable of birth is given, so we can give the same parable of conception and extend the metaphor all the way. Mm-hmm. And the Rambam, is interestingly enough, is saying that sometimes you just should not be extending the metaphor any more than it was given. So I just found it interesting, But moving on. Okay, so now we go to Kuf Mem Beis. Kuf Mem Beis. Omer HaSeichel. Okay, Nedaber Ato al ma she'anachnu bo. So let us return to the topic that's at hand. Shehu Midas Mishpoto Yizborach As Yoshor VaMisukain, which is the midah of justice, I would say better, justice of God, which is straight and perfect. וזה, כי מציאוס העולם הזה, בזמן הזה, שהוא כל זמן עבודת הודם בכל יום ותולדוי. So, the nature of the world at this time, which is the time of service, תלוי רק במידס משפטוי. It is governed by the midah of justice. לפי שזהו עולם וזמן שהכינו האדון ברוך הוא להרויס בו יושר משפטוי, because that's the time in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals the appropriateness, or the yosher, the balanced approach of his justice system. Okay, so that's what he says here, that the nature of this world is to reveal God's justice. Okay, which is not necessarily aligns with what he said before, because if one of the things before he said that the test of evil, and we'll see how this connects, but the nature of evil is such that it tests your faith. Why does it test your faith? That was the fifth level of test that he described in the purpose of evil, right? Why does it test your faith? Because it seems to go contrary to God's justice, right? You see something happening, you see a tragedy, and you think, okay, it's just some tragedies, okay, I worked it out, how it fits into the picture, but some tragedies you see and it's like, I can't be a God in the world that lets this happen, right? But that's part of the test of evil. And he's saying, yeah, but the nature of the world as of service is to reveal God's the appropriateness of God's justice system. And the world is not complete when that mishpat is done appropriately, al yosher, straight. Hashem is known, he's revealed, he's known, mishpat also, when he does justice. Hashem is elevated himself in mishpat, in justice, right? The pasuk we say on Rosh Hashanah. Uksiv melech b'mishpat yamid haaretz. The king in justice sets up the earth. V'hainu she'einoi toiv le'olam klal ma she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu maniach le'b'shoyim le'soilu l'harim karno. Right, so that's basically addressing this point. He's saying since this world is in mishpat, so it doesn't make sense to let Rishoyim have this free reign and continue to be elevated in their stupidity. V'hinei tzadikim medukoyim, and as a result, tzadikim are getting pushed around. V'sitna nitzach, and this Satan is victorious. V'adai ein zeh toiv lo'olam elara. Certainly, this is not good for the world, but it's bad. It's evil. Aval hatoiv hu adarava. So what's good? The opposite. Shakadosh Baruch Hu yaseh mishpat. Hakadosh Baruch Hu should perform justice. V'shiyachnias reshoyim. He should, push down on the wicked. V'yashpil hageim, and he should lower those that elevate themselves. The Bali Gaiva. V'yiroyim and tzadikim v'yarim koidom. And tzaddikim should be elevated, and their honor should be raised. It's a joy for tzaddik when there's justice in the world. Right? And there's joy when the Rishoyim are eliminated. Good. So that's so far, that's pretty clear. So what comes out is that any time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives Rishoyim and extends their string, so to speak, right? You let the dog go out as far as possible. Shehem goivrim ba'olam, so then they are strengthened in the world. Umashchisim es hayoyishiv es tzedakah, and they pervert or destroy the straightness and the righteousness of the justice. Ein nikra zel gabav elakaviyochol sheina. So we call such an idea that as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sleeping. Okay? As if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sleeping. Okay? Right? He's sleeping on the job. So the shomer, the guard, is sleeping on the job. Okay? Ubeshoshi yiketz min hasheina azois. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wakes up from this sleep, noimer boy, vayiketz kiyoshin Hashem, and he wakes up like as if slumbering Hashem, etc. Vayach tzorav achor, and then we see it says, and he, smites his enemies backward. V'zeh, and that is ki b'shlomo im be'emes hoyeroitz HaKadosh Baruch Hu lahanhig olamai rak b'chesed u'b'atova gemura. Because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu really wanted only to govern the world with chesed and pure goodness, shelo yeh ba'olam ra, that there would be no evil in the world, ki im toiv, and only good. That would be considered tikkun for the world. But then there has to be a setup where there is no such possibility of sinfulness at all. And there cannot be a possibility for actions that pervert goodness, that diminish goodness and pervert goodness, which will be the status of the world in the future. Right? It says that the sinners will cease from the earth. It's going to be sins. It is written, right? If I'm not mistaken, that's the translation, right? Not only that sinners will cease, but sins will cease, right? Obviously, if sins cease, that sinners will cease too. But the point is that he's saying that, and the story of there in the bracha says that the story says Reb Meir had a neighbor that was troubling them, and he wanted to daven that something bad should happen to the neighbor. And the wife told him, don't daven that something bad should happen to the neighbor, daven that you should do tshuva. And the pasuk is, because it says, Yitamu chatoim in haaretz, sinners shall cease from the land, and chatoim ksiv, meaning sins, it is written. In other words, don't daven that he should cease, see. The Gemara seems to be saying, don't daven that he, the sinner, should cease. Daven that the sin should cease, and he should stop, therefore being a sinner. Right? That's the Gemara. That's the Gemara. What the Ramchal is saying, taking away from that Gemara, is that in the future, this meaning they're kind of taking from the future element and bringing it into the present, but the future says not only that there will be no sinners in the world, but that there will be no opportunity for sin in the world. So therefore, obviously, there'll be no sinners. But there's a difference in itamu chatoy, meaning get rid of sinners. You sin, lightning strike, you're done, as opposed to no, there's just no way for you to sin, so there'll be no sinners. Okay. Anyways, so then you can refer to the world as being only controlled by chesed. That there's also no Yetzer Hara, but rather all people serve God by not by choice, but by not by rote, not by force. I wouldn't say exactly, but by, because there's no other option. And I do what is in my nature to do. But an idea that Hashem should wait for the Rashoyim until their measure is filled up. But until that happens, the world is plunged into chaos. Right? That Hashem should say, okay, Sodom and Amorah, I give you 52 years until, I strike you. Well, what happens during the 52 years? The 52 years is chaos. So, but in the end, the Rishonim will get what they deserve. Vaday ein ze chesed. That's not chesed, ela din kosher me'od. But rather, this is a very, very strict judgment. Okay,
sounds like a nuclear war with a bad end. Sounds like a nuclear war with a bad end.
Armageddon.
Yeah.
Ki adarabba kvar zacharnu ma'amer hakosov l'mayla. We already mentioned the pasuk above. Oihav those that love him, shacharu musar, they seek musar. Uksiv rak eschem yodati mikol mishpachois adamo al kein efkoid aleichem es kol avoynei seichem. That from HaKadosh Baruch Hu meets out punishment from Klal Yisrael little by little. Shelo yirba aleihem hara. Sheyitztorchu liyos mismatim chas v'shalom ela adra v'roitzu b'tikunum k'mo shebarnu. Right. So what he seems to be trying to say over here is that Yisrael being punished all along the way, so that they don't get into the point of comfort that everything what we're doing is right and everything is good and nobody, and only getting patched, strongly towards the end, is much more of a stronger din than getting constantly whacked over the head, in order that you should never get out of line completely. That's what, right? That's the message here. He's saying that okay, let's see a little more. Okay? I just want to go back to this idea. So I don't know why specifically he brought this Marshall, this parable, right? But he said before that Hashem, when he lets the world run amok, we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sleeping.
Yeah.
Right? So, even though he's saying he's not sleeping, he's allowing this to happen. Right? But the mashal is that he's sleeping. I don't know why. I mean, the mashal of sleep has a certain negative connotation. He's saying that he's ignoring his responsibilities. as opposed to,
Being active.
he's waiting to crush them, meaning it, right?
Mhm.
It's different versus a mouse. Let's say a cat lets a mouse run away, giving him a sense of security, and then smacks him over the head. You don't say a cat is sleeping, but the truth is also the cat might be quote unquote pretending as if he's quote unquote sleeping. But that's one question I guess I have. Maybe it's just not a big question, but a question. But the other thing, somebody I spoke to in Israel, interesting guy, Michael Karayevanov, it was one of like the early underground in Moscow. What's the word? Promoters of Yiddishkeit in like early '80s. Close friend of like early Rabbi Katzin, and that whole circle, the Moscow circle. He's a very brilliant guy. So he has I read one of his essays on Yaakov Avinu and sleeping and seeing the ladder. So also Yaakov Avinu over there sleeping. Why specifically sleeping? Why specifically that vision happens when Yaakov Avinu is sleeping? So he was also thinking that maybe Yaakov Avinu sleeping is an idea of Klal Yisrael. Also, sometimes they are, so to speak, on the outskirts of world affairs, looking in. The angels running up and down, those are the different history makers of the world, the different kingships,
Napoleons.
right? Different Napoleons, and Jews are sleeping on the side, as if they're not really actively kind of involved in the world. So again, maybe in a similar sense that God and Israel are reflective of one another, and sometimes when it seems like Jews are not involved, but really behind the scenes, we are actively shaping the world history through our spiritual actions and whatnot. Okay, that's what did you want to say? Okay, all right, let's keep going then. So it comes out when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, since HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants this world, I'm not sure how to read that. Hold on. So, right. So an ideal. Let me read it again. So it's what it seems to be saying. So really, since HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants what's best for this world, so what's best for this world is what he calls mishpat tamidi. Mishpat tamidi means continuous judgment, like what he said about Jews before. Meaning, to clean any ra that appears to it little by little. Not to do this sleeping arrangement. So then the matters of the world are set up and fixed and blessed. And they all enjoy the greatest possible success. However, if we come to a situation when there is not enough schus in the world, and the Rasha iniquity gathers too much strength, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Astira panai mehem, I will hide my face from them. Uksiv, Haster astir panai behem, I will certainly conceal my face on that day. Umiyad hachoshech goiver, and at that point, immediately, the darkness overpowers. Haresha ve'asichlus, and also iniquity, and also foolishness. Ve'achachma nishpelas, but wisdom rather gets lower. Ve'emes mushleches, and the truth is cast aside. V'chol divrei olam miskalkalilim v'nifsodim, and all the matters of the world, they deteriorate. right? Again, so now it kind of answers the question that I was saying before, that Shayna seems to be, what's the word? Like not the ideal, sleeping on the job. The answer is yes, that's true. It's not the ideal. The ideal would have been for everybody to get any little thing, you get right away corrected, everything is fixed up, go ahead. Constantly, what's he calls mishpat tamidi, right? Constant judgment. None of this, okay, go ahead, let's see how far you can fall on your own before I really, really give it to you. Okay? Again, it comes to this chazal again. There is no day whose blessing, in other words, whose curse is worse than the next day. And even the taste of the fruits is diminished. And there's no success, not in physical matters, and not in spiritual matters. In other words, when there is no success in spiritual matters, there is also no success in physical matters. Again, that's a little hard to understand, because he just said that at that point he lets evil enjoy security. How does that mean, to let evil enjoy security? I think it means, to me, in my understanding, how do you let evil enjoy security? They enjoy all their lavish lifestyles, and their gashmias seems to be quite great, right? What he's saying is that with the downfall of the ruchnias, the gashmias is also diminished. What? I mean, I think he's talking about a global scale. Yeah. So in the world, right. He's saying in the world, if the world descends into evil, then, right, and Hashem sort of steps away and lets the evil roam. But as a result of that, the world is makulkal, what's the word? It deteriorates. And it deteriorates both on a spiritual level and on a physical level. Right? Again, logically it makes sense, but in practice, I don't know if I see necessarily the world deteriorating on a physical level. Right? I see maybe, when Rishoyim are getting it, right? When everything is, what does that mean to let Rishoyim run on? It means, at least initially, it means that they're going to have prosperity, they're going to have good things.
Right.
So I'm not sure. I understand in terms of, forget religious things. We perfectly understand that, especially since we've lived through the last couple of years, we see that when you let certain evil ideas catch on, they set society on a course of kind of self-destruction, right? Where, quote unquote, the benefits that they seek come back and actually hurt them, right? And they create all sorts of policies that are self-defeating and self-hurting, So I mean, I understand to some degree. Maybe that's what he means. I'm not sure, but on a simple level, to say that the steaks are getting less tasty, I'm not sure. Right. So in that sense, in faith, we believe that when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, nitl tama peris, the fruits, something was lacking, but that's 2,000 years ago. What happened? The last 50, 70, 80 years.
What can be physical? All those earthquakes, tsunami, all those fires.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe
that's literal physical.
Right. Maybe it's the I don't know, certain physical tragedies like natural disasters and things like that. Okay, it's possible. Okay. Fine. V'hinei im be'emes, right? That's what we're up to. V'hinei, yes. V'hinei im be'emes kavonos HaKadosh Baruch Hu hoyo rak liyaser harashoyim. Kvar hoyo olam nechra ba'avarom. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu's intention was to focus on the Rishoyim and to punish them, then the whole world would have been destroyed because of them. Ach given she'en kavonos el lehetiv, but in truth, his kavana is to benefit. Ve'ein mois mosoroi v'teichachto ela me'ahavo. His punishments stem from love. K'mo shbarna kein rotze lechoinen kiyum mitzius le'olam afilu b'zman she'ein zchus. So therefore, he wants to establish an opportunity for the world to remain even when there is no zchus. She'hakiyum hazeh lo yishtana v'lo yismoiteit. And that this kiyum, right, this establishment of the world should not change, it cannot diminish. Now, in order for that to happen, he utilizes, he calls forth his roimimus, right, his above worldliness, and his shlitoso, and his all controlledness. That he is not obligated, he is not subjugated by any principle, and there's nothing that impairs him. Okay? So therefore he can maintain the world even when the people do not deserve it. Right, so this is right. This again goes back to his ideas before over here. Right. He said over here in the end of 139 that Hakadosh Baruch Hu's this idea that Hakadosh Baruch Hu's Musar comes from Ahava, right? Kasher Yisar Ishus B'noi Hashem Elokecha Yisreka, like as a father punishes his son, so does Hashem punish you, right? So Musar, punishment, stems from Ahava, and it says that that concept of punishment from Ahava has two parts to it. One is that the punishment itself is never full. It's not b'achzorius, it's not with cruelty, it's not full. And then secondly, when the punishment is too much, HaKadosh Baruch Hu removes the punishment altogether. Right? That's what he's kind of elaborating on here. He's explaining why that is so. Right? He's saying that as HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows for Rashoyim to prosper, then all zchus disappears. And at that point, the natural thing would be punish the Rashoyim and punish the whole world with it. Right? But he doesn't do that. Why doesn't he do that? Because what he's saying now, he calls forth his above justiceness. Right? And says, justice says, destroy, but I'm not going to destroy. Okay, so we saw this already like a third time, I believe, he's coming to this concept here in Daas Tevunos, and it's a concept that's difficult to understand because like he said, justice is justice. So God's removing justice seems unjust.
No, but we're going to look at the marble. He said, I'm not going to marble again.
Right. So what happened by the marble? That's another question.
Yeah.
Whether
But if I say right, I would have said it, but I promise I'm not going to do it.
And what happened by the marble?
Well, the hockey promise you're never going to do it again.
Right. But okay. But I'm saying what mida played into play?
No, that was justice. Like whatever
that was justice.
Like whatever his judgment was, he said everything has to be destroyed.
Right. And saving Noach.
Well, okay, find a favor.
No, I'm just saying. So according to Ramchal was learning in Parshas Noach. When the saving of Noach was this, Hashem really said the whole world should have been destroyed. But I'm going to bring in my midah of over justiceness and say I'm going to save Noach and preserve at least the world. But really, Noach should have been destroyed also. But I'm going to preserve Noach for the sake of preserving the world. Or do you say, no, Noach deserved to be saved?
No, I think it's different.
Or do you say, or
No,
do you
no.
say
No, it was different. With no situations, it was a custom case. Like, it's not more. If the one 10 Ezekiel said 9, those 9 wouldn't be saved. It was not enough. There's just no was special case. For some reason, he decided this one to keep. Not just.
but again, in Ramchal's world, there has to be a system in place for that to happen. Which system kicked in for Noach's salvation?
Okay, so maybe idea was not to destroy the world. That's already restart. But it's restart button. So it was restart mechanism.
So it was this Midah,
Uh,
you're saying.
maybe that's
Midah of Chesed. But really, Noach should have been destroyed with the world, because there was no schus in the world at the time.
But maybe the idea wasn't to destroy the world. It was to set a reset button, a different thing.
Meaning the world was destroyed.
Restart.
Restart. Restart. I mean, that's really what it sounds like. It sounds like
But
you're right. Noach was a teva in the new world.
Yeah,
It's supposed
you need a spark to restart something. Like what,
it's a new creation.
Yeah.
So then Ramchal is only, according to you, speaking in the post-Noachide.
Yes, because
Post
I'm
Noachide
in a
world.
situation like he gave a word, I'm never gonna do marble again.
And that's what no. So
and then I remember
Ramchal,
I should have done it, but because I promised I'm not
okay,
gonna
so
do it.
Ramchal is saying that this midah of Hashem turning on his above worldliness, that midah Hashem created when he made a covenant with Noach that he's never going to destroy the world again. That's how you learn it. It's possible. I was thinking about it along the same lines. I'm not sure. It doesn't sound like it. I would have loved for him to say it. I don't know why he wouldn't say it. If that's when such a midah kicked in, right?
But it's not a mean. It's more like a deal, like a promise. It's like all the generation should have done. I should have done it, but because the promise holds me off, I'm not gonna do it.
There's no such thing as, again,
It's nothing
which
new,
you're right,
it's
it
just-
makes it very difficult. You're making now a great question. According to Ramchal, he is utilizing his above worldliness. And what's the nature of this above worldliness? That I'm not subjugated to any promise. I'm not subjugated to any principle. And the Noach's promise is Hashem saying, I subjugated myself to the promise that I made to Noach that I'm never going to destroy the world again. So again, am I asking a question? Is when Hashem is not destroying the world because of his promise to Noach, is he utilizing this midah of I am above the world, which is, to me, comes like, maybe goes back to right? When Moshe Rabbeinu, right, this whole question is, Moshe Rabbeinu asked him, show me your ways. What are your ways? Why is there tzaddik v'raloi, rosha v'toivloi, right? Why is there, right, the righteous who bad things happen to him? Why is there rosha who good things happen to, right? So Hashem says, I can't teach you anything. I can't. But I will have favor on those that I will have favor, and so that's the midah. I think that's Ramchal is coming from that midah. The midah is I choose whenever I want to show favor to whoever I want, whenever I want. So that's nothing to do with Noach's promise, perhaps. That's a separate thing. But he seems to be connecting the two. He seems to be saying that midah kicks in when Hashem sees that if he would release his midah of judgment on the Rishayim, it would involve destroying the whole world.
Yeah.
He says, no, stop, pause. I'm not going to destroy the whole world. I'm going to show favor. So, once again, is he not destroying the whole world because of the promise to Noach? Is he not destroying the whole world because he has a midah called v'chanois asher achoim v'rechamti asher achem? Or maybe it's altogether something else that we just don't.
Maybe something else. He didn't make a promise to Noah. He changed the world to the extent that can't cause such damage to.
Okay, you could say it that way. I mean, he made a promise to Noach. You're saying that the promise to Noach just revealed the new nature of the world.
Right.
Okay, that could be. But how does that change the situation?
But then it's not. He expressed his chesed in changing the world, so the world wouldn't damage itself so much. Right? He took away the matches from a kid. Right. So now there's going to be no more fire. There's no need for pouring water on the fire because
there's going to be no more fire.
Right. Because we took away the matches. Now the world would never get to the point where
I know there's no more fire, but I
Right,
put
there
you
would-
into a fireproof room.
right, or whatever,
Let's put
right,
it that
you-
way.
okay, right,
Yeah, I put you into a fireproof room, so I don't care what you do.
right.
You're
Well,
now
no matter
in a
how much you
fireproof
try,
room.
you're not going to cause the fire. Therefore, there will never be need to put water of marble on top of
That's
the
again,
fire.
that's another question, because he doesn't seem to be saying that. He's saying whenever I see that the Bnei Adam get to the point where the world should be destroyed, Hashem says, "Sorry, kids, not gonna make me do it. I choose not to do it." Right? So he's not saying that Hashem created a world where the kids can no longer burn it. Yeah, they could. They definitely could. I just won't let it happen. I just won't do it. So again, it's a question, right?
Yeah.
So, which is he talking about? Again, maybe he's talking about before Noach. Maybe he's talking about in the theoretical sense. But it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like it's like he's saying the entire time this Seder HaMishpat is working.
But even with Moshe, it means I'll do whatever I want. You're saying you cannot see my face, but as pass, you'll see my back.
Okay.
So I think happening, you see that there was a reason behind it. You just don't understand stuff as happening, but actually afterwards. So if afterwards you can understand, it means the system's still in place. Otherwise, you will never understand it. Just
Good question.
So-
you're asking another question. He's asking Ramchal,
Yeah.
where do you get this very almost epicurus sounding notion that Hashem sometimes just steps away from judgment altogether? You just don't understand the judgment. The judgment is there.
Right.
It's always judgment.
I think it is.
But that's not what he seems to be saying. Otherwise, why does he need to tell me that Hashem employs some sort of a me that he wants to express that I am the boss here,
Yeah.
and just like I diminished myself. Let me say it a little bit different, but I think Ramchal means this. Just like I diminished myself, right? The whole chiddush of Ra was that how could Hashem create Ra? It's the absolute opposite. It's the absence of God. Hashem created the absence of God. Right? God created his own absence. That was the chiddush of Ra. Right? So just like I created the absence of Ra, I now create the absence of Ra. It's just like the absence of God, so to speak. I now create the absence of Ra. And so I gave power, I can take it away. But you create a system where the Ra can only be destroyed by justice. Well, too bad. That's what on simple level what Ramchal seems to be saying, which is very hard to understand in our very basic yeshiva training manual. And I'm not sure, I don't see anybody putting him in chayrim for any of this. So, I didn't see any Litvaks burning his farm. And the Gross seem to be okay with it, which, if anything, this would trouble me a lot more than some of the Baal Shem Tov things. But again, maybe some misunderstanding. We're just, superficial learners here. Okay, so let's see. Let's see if he didn't finish yet. So let's give him a chance to before we pass judgment.
Well, also, Hashem doesn't have to destroy the world. We can do it ourselves very nicely.
Well, we could just build an AI that's going to destroy it for us.
Yeah, it just he let us. I want to do it, and that's it.
So that's it. Yeah.
So he's not going to stop us. So we'll do destruction ourselves. So.
That's awesome.
That's-
A little
You like-
AI, a little nuclear, a little global warming.
Yeah, you don't need to remove anything. Like, okay, you want to go?
We'll get there.
Go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a scary thought. That's a scary thought. Yeah, maybe a little marble.
Yeah.
It's not so bad.
Wouldn't hurt. Wake up call.
All right. Yeah. Okay. That's a kasha. I have to come back to that idea. I think we should come back to that idea. Okay, let's keep going. But however, you have to understand well this concept. Because this also has many layers. Because it's asking our question. Because it's going to come out that a sinner benefits, is rewarded. The sinner is rewarded. Right, again, this is the concept of too big to fail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, which was the question that was economists arose, at the time. If you're going to bail out the ones who are too big to fail, then they're going to continue doing what they're doing, and then right? It's the moral hazard. So he's saying right now, if we know that Hashem is going to turn on His unlimited chesed, right, and not punish us all the way when we are fully guilty, so then let's go. So let's see. So it comes out as the sinner is rewarded. The world will remain even without merit. It will be retained without the midah of chesed. And there will be great love in exchange for the sins of the wicked. However, when you differentiate all the different layers of the concept, you will find deep wisdom in the organization of Hashem's providence. You already heard it is He who innovated from His pure will, even the concept of lack, of hefs, right, of missing, which in turn brings about the concept of sinfulness, right? So the concept of lack, right, this concept of absence, of insufficiency, brings about the concept of sinfulness. And also brings about the concept of toelas, of benefit, that is brought about by good actions. And He arranged different practices that are straight and beneficial. That all are, all rotate around this concept. And on these things, the success of the world depends. When Hashem strengthens the mishpat based on all of these arrangements, the world then succeeds in all of its sections. But if the sins increase and they cause that HaKadosh Baruch Hu disgusts, so to speak, in the world, and distances Himself from the people, so then the orders that He arranged that benefit the world, they are also perverted, and as a result they get mixed up. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not maintain them. And as a result, there is defect in all aspects of the world. However, when He comes back and strengthens them and returns them to their perfect state, then the creations are returned to their initial or their proper state. Okay, so I'm not sure what he's saying over here. I mean, I'm getting a gist of something, but he's saying that not only, right, so when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so He organized a beautiful system, a self-feeding positive system, and when something fails within that self-feeding positive system and it turns and negatives gets created, so then they also not only create the negatives that are created, the negatives that are created also just become a distortion to the whole system. Okay? Okay, again, we're not sure how that answers the question, right? That's not enough yet. Let's see. Va'amnam yesh. Just one second. Let's just see if I didn't miss anything. Okay, let's see. Now, there is another type of providence and another time. When there is a lot of merit amongst Israel, like will be in the future. When the world is perfected, rectified completely. That's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu transforms the status of the world to good, and removes, destroys from it all evil. So there was not even any Yetzirah in the Neshamas. Nor there is any damage or defect in any creation. So then the world is guided in complete rectification. And that will be a rectification of the world. When the world is prepared for such a providence. When the evil is removed from it. And then the mishpat is no longer necessary. Then Hashem deals with the world with mercy and goodness. And what is now hidden from the dwellers of the land, because the place, in the way, I guess the physical world causes them to be so, because it's a place where the darkness dominates, but for the time being, for the sake of the avodah, which is to test the person, as we explained. Later it will be revealed, as says the honor of Hashem will be revealed. Again, I'm not sure yet how all this combines, so let's keep reading. However, there are times when Hashem distances himself from the world. And his mishpat is not applied. Okay, and his dominion is not revealed. And it will be appropriate for the world to be destroyed. However, even at that darkest moment, Hashem still desires that the world should remain. Then he maintains it only with the willpower of his domination. Because from the perspective of justice, pure justice, it's not ra'ui to remain. So therefore he brings forth his roimimus, his loftiness, that is not diminished by, and not diminished, not damaged by the sins of the people. That sounds more like what you were saying before, that there's an element of godliness that is completely untouchable by human actions. So then he brings forth that aspect of his godliness that's untouched by human actions, so that the world should not be destroyed. But he does not bring forth necessarily goodness into the world. Rather gives it just a little bit of what it needs. what will be impossible to survive without it. Because the world is not Mesukin, is not corrected when Hashem guides it in such minimal goodness. It's not even enough that the evil is not removed from it, but rather it continues to strengthen. So, in other words, again, right, he repeats himself, but he's saying that Hashem, at the time when Hashem maintains the world, he maintains it on the most limited, minimal basis just to keep it going. However, we know at that moment that Olam is ro'ui le'esnahig, that Hashem, that the world is appropriately guided through mishpat, and its tikkun ultimately can only be achieved through mishpat. Right? Umoira al zeh hatzimtzum hazeh shezacharno. So in other words, now he's trying to tie all of these things together. Let's try to understand. Mm-hmm. Right? He's saying, let's say you have a child. You threw him out of the house, okay? You threw him out of the house, but you keep sending him a minimal allowance that's enough to pay his just basic bread and water to survive, right? Why are you sending him the allowance? You're letting him know that I threw you out because of whatever A, B, C, and D that you did, right? But I'm not getting rid of you completely, because if I would be getting rid of you completely, I wouldn't be sending you the allowance. So I'm giving you a chance to return, right? Mm-hmm. So what he's saying right now is that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu turns on his mamshala, not to destroy the world, that is also temporary. And within that mamshala, there is still a system that says that I'm temporarily switching on my loftiness, right? I'm temporarily allowing the world to exist in this terrible state, right? But I'm only allowing it. I'm showing to the world, and we'll see how he's showing it. But I'm showing to the world that this is just an allowance, and as an allowance, I'm not suspending. In other words, I'm not suspending the concept of justice completely. I'm temporarily withholding it until better times. That's what he's saying, right? So it's not that the concept of justice is completely removed from the world. No, that could never happen. He's saying that for now, it's removed from the world. Okay.
And there is a removed.
But let's finish the paragraph and then we'll discuss. So and that revelation of kind of justice in the background is shown through the allowance that it's minimal allowance. Va'arasha goiver, and this that temporarily the ra continues to grow, she'eina teva misala l'toiva, but as a result, the teva does not benefit, the nature does not benefit, that to get to the point where it's going to be just like in the future. But rather it remains within the bounds of laws that Hashem created for during the Hanoga Mishpatis. And furthermore, since Hashem is distanced himself from the world, the mishpat is not accomplished. And the land remains within chaos, in a state of chaos. And as a result, Rashoyim dominate with impunity. Like a wild animal that destroys. Ve'ein doirish, ve'ein mevakesh, and there's nobody who seeks and nobody who yearns. Hakol me'uvis mekulkal, everything is perverted and destroyed. Ve'rak HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayim alav v'koyach ha'ratzoinu ha'bilti meshubad l'shum chayk. And rather, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu maintains His world by not being limited to any chayk. Kiyum greda, but only minimal maintenance. Ad sheyetz la'or mishpoteh, until the true justice comes out. It's written in the pasuk, "Umishpoti le'or amim argia," and my justice to the light of nations I will. I'm not sure, like argia, what argia means in this word context. I will bring to pleasure, or something like that.
My judgment will eliminate the nations and will give them respite.
Well, again.
My judgment will eliminate the nations and will give them respite.
Right. So respite, le'oramim, for the nations, for the light of nations, my justice will give a respite. Meaning a respite, meaning I was
going to ask what's
relax. Relax my judgment for the light of the nations. Okay, so that's it. That's what he's saying. So let's put it all again. Let's put it all together. Now what he's going to tell us now is that the world's history can be broadly divided into these different time periods. And when time period when we know Hashem is, we'll have like 4 or 5 different types of time periods. But the point that let's understand again what he's saying. He's saying right. So let's just summarize the whole thing. So he is saying that ideally the world should be in a state of mishpat tamidi. That's the ideal state, right? Mishpat tamidi means anybody who's a little bit out of line gets instantly in line, and the world continues on a path of growth. That's the ideal state, right? Continuous growth. Anytime out of line, get back in line. Continuous growth. That's the ideal state. What happens when the world gets completely out of line? Then what happens? So then it deserves a big patch. What happens if the big patch means destroy the whole world? Hashem says, I'm not going to destroy the whole world. I'll let it continue this way until what? Until what? So he didn't specify until what, but until some sort of a rectification does occur. So I want the world to remain until some sort of rectification, right? Doesn't speak about what the rectification is. We're talking about ultimate rectification or some other intermediate rectification. We may have different types. But the point is, he's not saying, at least for now, he's not saying that Hashem's justice, Hashem says, I will remove my justice completely. Here's Mashiach, everything's great, let's move on. Doesn't seem to be saying that. He seems to be saying that I will remove my justice for now, and then I'll plug it back in, and we'll square all the cheshbonos. He's not saying that we're not going to square cheshbonos. Again, this is now really aligns much better with what he says in Mesilas Yesharim, right? He also asks the question, what's Midas Harachamim for if Hashem is always justice? And Mesilas Yesharim says, anybody who says that Hashem is Vatran is mistaken. Anybody who says that Kosh Baruch Hu just lets things slide, right, will have his life kind of like let it slide, right? So we had a problem with this, right? When we learned this initially, this concept in Daas Tevunos, we had a problem. How do we reconcile the Ramchal and Mesilas Yesharim together with the Ramchal and Daas Tevunos? Now maybe it starts beginning to align a little more, right? He's not saying that Hashem's Midas HaMemshala can completely suspend judgment and say, do guys whatever you want, it's fine, no problem, I still love you. That's not what he's saying. He's saying, I still love you, therefore I will only keep you around on the minimal cheshbon, on an allowance, right? Allowance will show you, once you hopefully understand that you're only getting a minimal allowance, you see that there's something's missing, and you will restore the judgment. but he's making it a little bit more beautiful, and he's saying this. How does this mechanism work? Because when Hashem distances himself from the world, not only is he kind of like giving less of himself to the world, but the entire justice system that he set up, by definition, gets all mixed up. The Rishoyim, by creating all of these sins, they are not only damaging the world itself, but they're also damaging the justice system that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put in place, right? So in a Hanami, meaning the way he understands it, again, when the system gets broken, the system is set up to maximize benefit of for the world, right? When the system is broken, then it's all mixed up. Then you have maybe you have sudden benefit over there, a sudden tsunami over here, and nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense because the Rishoyim, not only they damaged the world, they damaged even the what's the word? What do you call that when in the airport when they have the control of the air control system? So it's like the air control system is messed up and planes are falling out of the sky and it's chaos. That's what he says. It's chaos, right? So and he's saying beautiful, very beautiful, and I have to really reread it a little bit now more with a better understanding. Because since, according to him, the world was designed with a lack, right? And with the system to fix the lack. And the chet not only increases the lack, but also diminishes the very system that's designed to remove the lack. And the result hurts hurts themselves, right? In other words, the Chatoim diminish the blessings of the world because, again, in his setup, again, we have to figure out if we feel the map that he's designing fits our worldview. But let's I'm trying to just understand what map he's working out, right? The map that he's working out is that there was a world that was created chaser, that was created in a lack. There was a system set up to fix that, to perfect the world. Okay, the world chose not only not to perfect itself, but lowered itself, right? And as a result, not only it lowered itself, but it also completely destroyed the system that Hashem created in order to fix the lack, right? So at that point, Hashem has to fix the plumbing, he has to fix the system, right? But he doesn't yet. He distances himself away from the world, right? And he doesn't correct the plumbing. So, but at the same time, he allows, whether it's through the plumbing, whether it's bypassing the plumbing, I'm not sure, but somehow he allows the world to continue to exist. Because when they destroy the plumbing, really the world should have been destroyed too. Yeah. But yet he kind of bypasses the plumbing and it says, I'll give you a small allowance that will allow you to exist. Right? So now the question is, niskar, but then sinners are rewarded. The answer is no, the sinners are not rewarded. All accounts are going to be squared. At the end, all accounts will be squared. Right? Just right now, if we were to square the accounts right now, the world would be destroyed. And we can't do that. Hashem wants the world. So therefore, the Midas HaRachem overpowers the Midas HaDin and says, no din right now. No din right now. Right? So now it actually now comes back more or less to very standard Yiddishkeit framework. Again, the only difference that I see from the way he designs it is that this concept that the sinfulness damages the system. Now he also does talk, so then the question is, it doesn't exactly specify at how HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes back to fix the system, because it seems to be that the first step in going back to Midas HaMishpat is to restore the system to its proper working order. And that I don't think he explained. One second, I'm alone. All right, but that's why he brought in, there's a whole paragraph that he brought in. What will happen since there is a future time where there's a perfect correction, right? So that future time, why did he bring that? Who cares about the future time? We're not dealing with the future time. We're dealing with the present time when, right?
That's not perfect correction. It's either we do it or time's up. He don't do it.
So I'm not sure. Hold on. I mean, he just has this line. However, if he strengthens them, meaning the system that he set up, to return them to their original state, all the creations will return to their kind of beneficial state in peace. Right? Okay. So, in other words, he doesn't exactly describe how HaKadosh Baruch Hu strengthens the system back once it's been damaged by the wicked. But I think, in my mind, but then why does he bring this whole huge paragraph of that? But there's going to be tikkun in the future. I think that tikkun in the future is the thing that allows the restoration process to take place, because since you know that the future, sometime in the future, there is going to be a restoration, and meaning there is already a system in place. It didn't happen yet, but there is a system in place called future system when everything is great. So therefore, well, right now it's all distorted. Okay, so let's rebuild the world that it should be able to restore to the path towards that future. Without the future, without the possibility of perfected future, there will be no way to restore. That's what I think. That's beautiful. Because I always had this problem, with destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. How is restoration ever possible? That's what I always say. How does tshuva ever possible? To me,
that's what I was looking for. Like Mashiach, two ways Mashiach can come. Either we're going to bring him, or time's up and he's going to bring it. We're not really like.
So again, that's a question. I hear that question. I don't know how this is going to fit into his piece right now.
But that's such until when delayed judgment.
Until I understand. Right. So that's a good question. That's a good point. I'm not sure. Like I hear. I didn't. I hear. But even before that, meaning, what I'm thinking right now is like this: is that how is tshuva ever possible? Meaning, people sin. Oh, there's a lot of chilul Shabbos. All right, no.
Yeah, but
it's not so bad.
Not so bad. Come on, it's got to move people.
1 second. So
just shock effect.
Right. So sometimes Hashem has to do something so tragic and terrible, like the Holocaust and the Beis Hamikdash. But is that the only way out?
No, but it's working. Well, miracles help if you stop doing them. So,
but miracles don't help. Golden calf, Meraglim.
Yeah, but we do constantly.
So-
Yeah, this start taking effect. But now one will be great. Like,
Okay, but they'll work for a little while and then they'll stop. So, but how is tshuva ever possible? I'm just saying, I'm not talking about I'm saying, well, forget, okay, godly intervention, but supposedly tshuva exists as a concept without God's intervention, right? That means humans can do tshuva. But how is it ever possible if once a sinfulness takes hold in a society, then the society's not only actions are perverted, their worldview is perverted. And so you teach them new things, they don't drop their old things, they transform themselves into some new evil way.
As you said before, sometimes those new things go to all those like the gender stuff.
Right, exactly.
Like,
They go to
people
some, right? They start out with some good
We're going to the point
intention.
that people actually start saying, come on, it's so ridiculous.
Right.
So that's a first
So you
step.
hit some kind of a wall, a bottom. You're saying at the end of the day,
They
there is
just
no
start,
way
yeah.
to do it until you hit a bottom. And I'm saying the Ramchal is telling you something else. Good. That's where you're right. Again, you're right. You can get to it by hitting bottom.
Yeah.
You can get to tshuva by hitting some sort of bottom, and you realize how in the world did we get here? And hopefully you can still trace your steps back. But the Ramchal is saying there is another way to tshuva, and that is remembering the top.
Yeah, obviously.
Well, not so obviously.
No, because when you're learning, when you think about the stuff, when you stay with it, at least you're thinking about the top. At least you have something to focus. When it's gone, it's gone. But as long as you have some kind of connection to the
Right.
top, memory of the top, at least you're thinking about the top. Yeah.
Right.
Once you stop thinking about it, it's gone. Okay? You don't think about it, there is no target. There's no way
Good.
to go to it.
So
That's-
without understanding of the ideal, and without chazorah of the ideal,
Yeah.
maybe
That's
tshuva is not possible.
But that's
The
why
tshuva is possible
Yeah.
because there is an ideal that exists.
That's why the system's damaged but not destroyed.
Right.
That's why it's always something to start to work with.
Right. Right. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful thing to me now, at least for me now, it seems to be working out.
Yeah.
Right. So the potential for the ideal and the lack of the ideal should always remind us, hello, why are we still sitting in our darkness with disease and wars and conflict? Why aren't we waking up to the fact that we are supposed to build together an ideal world? Нам нужен новый мир построить. Again, that's the map. Now the reality is, многие пытались новый мир построить и построили еще 10 times worse, like you said. So that's a question. But at least that's in the map of the Ramchal. Again, we'll have to, I don't know what time is it. It's quite late. And this has been long. But in the map, that's the map that the Ramchal is designing for us, I think. Okay?
Yeah.
Fine. We'll stop.